I'm out here with the forecast for the week of April 1st, 2024. I was going to start with a big April Fool's thing, but you know what? Mercury is stationing to retrograde on April 1st. We don't really need any more April Fool's stuff. It should make for quite a day. I mean, I'm really looking forward to this as being, well, I don't know if I'm looking forward to it as being, well, yeah, I'm looking forward. Well, no. Anyway, we'll see. It is quite the April Fool's energy, that's for sure. The cosmic trickster is going to be at his trickiest on April Fool's Day. So we have both the astrological trickster energy, and we have the general, collective. We've designated April 1st to be All Fool's Day, and here we go. I can't wait to see. Well, I could wait to see what happens. Anyway, it should be quite a thing. This week we have Mercury stationed to go retrograde, which means essentially from essentially from March 30th onward, we're going to be in the midst of the station, and then he'll be deeper into the retrograde as we go forward in the week. So lots of stuff can go wrong. But you know what's not going to go wrong is that on Saturday, March 30th at 12 Eastern time, if you're watching this beforehand, I will be doing the April forecast live, and you can join me here on YouTube for the live forecast, which just means I give the forecast, and then I'll answer any questions that you have about pretty much anything. And so if you're around, join me. That's 12 Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. That would be 4 p.m. 1600 hours London, and the rest of you figure it out for yourselves. So that's a thing. The other thing that we have this week, and we start out with Mercury stationed to go retrograde, and we're approaching, we're not there yet, but we're approaching the solar eclipse, which is the following Monday. So this takes us right up to the penultimate moment before the solar eclipse on not August 8th, April 8th. They both begin with A, two-syllable words. So we have this eclipse. So what does that mean? It means that we are between the eclipses. The energy is still very high. We're still not seeing things in the correct proportion. Things look much bigger than they otherwise would. We're seeing them through a magnifying glass, right? So we have the eclipse energy is giving us this magnifying glass that makes things look much more intense than they otherwise would. I don't come right out and say it makes much look worse than they otherwise would, but it's an eclipse energy, so it rarely seems to make things look so much better than they otherwise would. Although hold on to that thought for just a second. And then we have Mercury. Mercury is retrograde, and so we get misinformation, crossed wires of communication, and we follow that up with all things. Everything is like, we have the wrong information, and we're ready to act and feeling impulsive, and, we're a little bit anxious about things, and things are blown out of proportion and all of that. So yeah, that's a little bit difficult to deal with in some respects. Now, I am not, I don't write in the comments that you're going to go hide under your bed for the week or stuff like that. That's not what I'm here to do. I am here to say that if you're getting a little freaked out about stuff, chalk it up to the eclipse. If you're getting a piece of information that just scares the living shit out of you, just chalk it up to the eclipse. Okay, that's just chalk it up to the eclipse and Mercury retrograde and say, okay, well, I'm not sure what I'm going to do about this, but it's probably something I'll be able to handle in a fairly decent way pretty soon. Maybe I shouldn't completely freak out. I mean, once in a while, so, but no, don't freak out. Always best handling things less freaked out would be the way I would put it. That's the overview for the week, to tell you the truth. We're between eclipses. The energy is very high. We have Mercury retrograde. We are likely to see the biggest snafus early in the week, but Mercury is still retrograde, so this is not a time. Watch the video on Mercury retrograde. It's very, very good. You got to find it on my channel over here. Go look for it. It's very, very good. You really acquaint yourself with it. Not a good time to buy new technology, a new phone, and don't give me this whole I'm replacing my old one, and so it's a re-thing. So it's a don't go buy a new phone if you don't absolutely have to. Sometimes you have to. It's not a great thing to buy a car or a computer or any sort of technology type of thing. Again, you're replacing it. Don't do that. Astrologers are really big on that type of thing. A lot of astrologers will, oh well, we're having the meeting on the day that Mercury stations, but it's okay because very rarely is it okay. Be very, very careful right around Monday with the retrograde, when the retrograde energy is really at its peak. All right, so that's an overview that is worth the 5 minutes that you've been watching this. You kind of know. It's otherwise, I mean, it's fine to take care of business as usual. It's not a bad time to go back and do some editing, rechecking of things and all of that. There's no prohibition against, cleaning out the garage or painting the ceiling or anything else that you want to do or don't hesitate to go to the store and buy something. Those digital coupons may be a little bit of a problem, but anyway, so that's an overview. I think that's it. That's not it. Not it. Okay, so at the beginning of the week also, we have Mars. Mars in Pisces is square to the recently stationed Pallas Athene. And we very likely will get a bit of that backtracking energy. So like, on the towards the end of last week when Pallas Athene stationed to retrograde on the 29th, we're at this sort of period of time of like somebody's gonna have to backtrack on what they said. Somebody who states, this is the truth. Well, I guess I got that wrong. Even perhaps as much or more as Mars squares Pallas Athene, we're likely to find a little bit of that sort of backtracking energy where people say, well, I guess what I meant to say was, right, what I should have done is. So that there's a little bit of that kind of energy that's sort of sparking up. It'll probably get lost in the whole flow of the eclipse and Mercury retrograde and stuff like that. But if you've got the time and the inclination to go look for something like that happening, you'll probably see it. Now, Venus will go into, well, Venus on Wednesday, and that happens, I'm looking over here. Yeah, I'm looking. Let's say Tuesday, Wednesday. Venus meets with Neptune at the end of Pisces. Now, Venus loves to be in Pisces, and it's Neptune's home sign. And there's some little harmony that's going on over here that sounds really nice. This is a nice energy for things like romance and creativity, and it just gives it this kind of nice glow. It puts things into soft focus. Our appreciation gets greater. Maybe our judgment not so much, but our appreciation gets greater. Really, it has a nice feel to it. It's not a great time to make a major decision in a relationship or anything like that, but it's a good time to appreciate what you got. It's a good time for enjoyment when it comes to finances or any other kind of thing. It's got that same sort of vibe to it. It is a time that would be great for appreciating what you have. Go take out your little coffee mug collection or whatever the thing, coffee cup collection, I suppose it would have to be, and have a look at it and see, like appreciate what you have, but not really a time for going out and getting something new. It's or listen to some wonderful music, have a nice aesthetic experience in whatever way you feel is good. By all means, create and play with things and stuff like that. It's not necessarily the best time for coming up with something practical, but it could be, and it's also a great time for that kind of, just letting it flow, seeing what happens. Great energy for lots of stuff. Yeah, I wouldn't make, major decisions, but who does? Next thing we have coming up is soon as she meets with Neptune, just a day later. This happens on the 4th, which was a Thursday. Venus, having said goodbye to Neptune, goes into Aries. Now, Venus in Aries is a really, really interesting placement. Venus in Pisces is like letting go, letting things happen, letting things flow between us, between everyone. It's this nice kind of energy. Then Venus goes into Aries, which is another nice energy, but it's much more, let's go out, let's have some fun, let's do some stuff. It's that kind of feeling like, okay, well, it's springtime for most of us. It's springtime, the weather is nice, the weather might be nice, and let's go out and do some stuff. Let's get moving with things. We've been in the house long enough. It is, although I'm not sure how many folks are really observant of this, but still, again, part of the collective vibe there. It's the end of Lent, right? The Lent ends up, at Holy Week, Thursday, Friday, and Easter Sunday. It's the end of Lent, so like the restrictions that are upon us, it's kind of like a Venus retrograde kind of energy, are lifted, and it's this kind of go forward sort of feel that happens there. And I'm sort of speaking within the Christian vein, but it doesn't need to be that way. This is a bit the way the mood works there. It's springtime. The waiting is over when Venus goes into Aries. That's a nice aspect. And then Venus goes on to meet Pluto, because Pluto's at the very beginning of Aquarius, and so they have a sextile relationship. This is a potentially productive kind of meeting of these two. You can look back to earlier in the year and say, things that began around that time are maybe, we're hitting the first crossroads, a sort of soft crossroads, not necessarily like the most, obvious type of thing. But this is like where we are with the relationship. Are we gonna nudge it forward a little bit? Are we gonna pull back a little bit? It's a very soft, powerful, but not necessarily dramatic shift and change point. So for those of you that have something going on in the romance department, hey, good for you. You already got something going on. That's nice. And this might be a sort of, soft movement onto another path or something like that. You could take it. You're not being forced to make a choice, but you could if you wanted to. That kind of thing would describe this in terms of finances and businesses and socializing and stuff as well. There is a resonance here that is like, okay, we can kind of move things forward. And it's coming out of the new moon. Well, it's coming into the new moon. It is an ending kind of energy as far as the lunar cycle is concerned. But it's still, I mean, Venus in Aries and Pluto in Aquarius. For folks that are doing stuff that would have to do with connecting with larger groups of people and stuff like that, this is a pretty fantastic energy that should be prevailing right around the end of the week. It is right before the solar eclipse. It is right before the new moon. But you could still set things up and get things kind of, lined up for going forward next week after the new moon solar eclipse, which, by the way, we'll be talking about in next week's forecast.